When a woman is giving you 100%, you need to give 80%. When a woman is texting you, oh my gosh, I miss you already, and it's in the middle of the week, you need to write back to her something like, just a few more days till we see each other again. Don't say, oh, I miss you too. It's so hard to make it through the week without you. She may think she wants you to match her energy and say you miss her, but the second she gets it, she's going to be losing interest in you. And she's not going to be quite sure why. Because women, they're just programmed to want a guy who only gives about 80% to the 100% she gives. She takes that as a sign that you're a little bit out of her league. She likes that. She would rather know she's got a guy a little out of her league who likes her 80% than to know she settled for a guy who likes her 100%, but maybe she could have got better.
All right. So we're going to go through the 8 biggest lessons we learned coaching over 1,000 hours of sessions, working with guys, helping them in various aspects of their dating life. And we're going to go through and pinpoint some of the biggest observations, things that helped our clients the best. I've got Rob Judge, Chris Anderson, Calvin with me. And this is the first time we're doing something like this. So I'm really excited because, like I said, we've all combined. I think I did the numbers the other day. It was about 1,000 hours, which is insane, working one-on-one with guys. And some really amazing success stories between the four of us and the various guys we worked with. We can get into some of them. But what I asked these guys to do is pinpoint the 1 or 2 things they found that made the big difference this year, the big insights that helped their clients. So we're going to go through them. We're going to start off with Calvin. If you guys don't know Calvin, he's been coaching with me for a couple of years now. He's done a handful of videos, getting some really good results and finding some interesting things with the guys he's working with. All right, so Calvin, why don't you kick this off with something that you realized this year or you helped a client realize that made a big difference?
Yeah, one thing I've worked a lot with guys on this year is, okay, obviously anyone familiar with Bobby Rio's videos or products knows that we teach a blackout. We teach guys to pull away. But how many of you guys have seen guys do the blackout or the pull away completely wrong and do it in a needy way? I know you guys have seen some guys botch this, right?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Yes.
I know a couple people personally that have botched this, including probably myself at some point. But,
so one way I've seen a guy botch it this past year was before hiring me as a coach, right? He came to me, he was like, yes, I've had her in a blackout for 3 weeks. I said, oh, that's great. Good job. He says, and here's the last text I sent her before the blackout. And he had texted her, clearly you don't have enough time to give me the attention I deserve. So I'm walking away until you can give me the attention that I crave. Oh, thanks. That's not a blackout. That's you having a pity party and being a diva.
Yeah. That's like an ultimatum, which we all know never ends the way we want it to end.
About a BHB, a butthurt blackout, because you're going into it very upset already, so doesn't have the same effects.
No, and you know what? You know why these guys do this? And again, we can laugh about it, but I'm sure we've all been guilty of this at some point, 100%. Is because they think by doing this, like walking it right to the cliff, suddenly she's going to be like, no, you're right. I am going to give you the attention you crave. Yeah. I'm so sorry. Like, again, it's like we're conditioned to think this from watching romantic comedies, but it never works like that. Whenever you do that, you just end up just driving her further away.
Yeah, it's also something stuck out, a word there. I deserve it. Like, I don't deserve to be treated this way.
Yeah.
And when you think like that, you're showing you take the game of romantic interest level, how it goes up and down, too personally. This is a personal attack on me that you're treating me this way, when really you need to correct her interest level and get it back up. And then she's going to treat you the way you want to be treated. There's nothing personal here. Romantic love is conditional. It's not unconditional. You can't say, oh, I've been married to this guy for 10 years. I shouldn't be treating him this way. If you're doing the wrong thing, she's going to treat you that way.
Yeah, I want to back up and explain Calvin's point a little bit for those, because this whole no contact, if you've been around YouTube, you see there's a million videos telling people you got to do no contact to get your ex back. And I think there's a lot of misinterpretation around that, right? People think it's like the whole idea of I'm just going to ignore every message she sends me and that's going to work, right? It's going to make her miss me. But I feel like that actually hurts you, because even if you don't write the long message that Calvin's client wrote where you put the ultimatum, it does seem bitter if you're just not answering, because she knows you're getting the message. She knows you're purposely not responding, which comes across as like passive aggressive, almost like you're too upset to talk to her. Whereas we always tell clients, and we've found worked, and I'm sure you guys do the same thing, is it's almost better to be almost politely indifferent, right? Answer her text, but just don't try to keep the conversation going, right? Little adjustments like that, I think, make this idea of no contact way more powerful.
Yeah, there's a sense of you hurt me, so I'm going to hurt you, right? When you do it that way.
You can never admit that you're pulling away because she hurt you. You always have to, and guys, if you guys are watching, this is the number one thing I wish you would know, that the pull away only works if she thinks that you just so happen to be pulling away because you have more interesting priorities in your life. You're out having fun. It doesn't work if she knows you're pulling away to lick your wounds because she hurt you by not patting you on the head enough. Okay, that's called being a little bitch, not being autonomous, right? Being autonomous is you're out with your friends one day and you shoot her a quick message and you're like, oh yeah, I'm horseback riding with my friend Calvin, but Calvin's mad because I grabbed the best horse. You know what I'm saying? Or one day you're like, oh yeah, I'm in a dune buggy race. We bet $300 and almost won. Can't believe I'm out $300. And you shoot her these fun little texts even throughout the day. This is not a full blackout, but this is just when you're pulling away from a chick who like you're dating, but you've been losing her, right? If you can just go out and live a fun life, she'll think, oh no, he's pulling away because he's hanging out with Calvin horseback riding or he's dune buggy racing. He's forgetting about me because I'm just the girl who nags him and doesn't even sleep with him anymore. Maybe I need to step my game up, the girl will think, right? But if she knows that you're only pulling away reactively because she hurt you, she gets all the power. What you guys got to understand is women win if they feel validated by you. Knowing they hurt you enough to pull away reactively still validates them. But thinking that you're, for example, horseback riding, dune buggy riding, hanging out with Rob and Chris, grabbing some drinks at a cool panoramic restaurant, that makes her think, oh crap, I don't have this guy's validation. I'm losing him. I better step my game up. I better ride him more. I better make sure I sleep with him next time we hang out.
I say too, if you're going to do the blackout, no contact, whatever, and it takes time, days, weeks, months, you've done it, you at least want to get credit for it, right? You did all this work. You don't want her in the end thinking, hey, what happened to that guy? Oh, I think he's crying in his room, crying in his beer for the last 3 months. You want her thinking like what you were talking about, because it's a lot of effort to do this. You want credit for doing it the right way.
Well, let's back up too and just remind everyone what the reason no contact works, right? The reason you do this is because when you're too available, when your time is too abundant, and she starts taking you for granted. And think about it, what increases something's value is when it suddenly becomes scarce. So when you go no contact, that your value is going up. But the thing is that you have to have that value there to begin with. That's why I like even better is I like what I call punctuated no contact, where you do something, just get her to see you as having value, and then you take a step back, because that's going to have more impact. And it doesn't even necessarily have to be a text message. If you guys follow each other on social media, you could post something, again, not like a try hard thing, but something that she's going to see that's going to register on her radar, and ideally even something that would make her a little bit curious. But then you're not there to scratch that itch. You're not the one, you're not overextending yourself, and that's ultimately is what's going to make your value go up. But simply just giving a woman silence isn't like the magic cure-all for making, mistakes or a woman pulling away.
Yeah, the last thing I want to say on that is, and this kind of ties in, the objective really of no contact should be for the guy to get his own head straight, right? A lot of times you're in emotional quicksand, you're making all the wrong moves. No contact breaks you out of that pattern. And it should also be a time for you to go, is this even what I want? Because sometimes we get caught up chasing the loss and we don't take the time to go, do I even want to put effort into making this work? But the other aspect of it is you're creating some distance to when you get back in contact with her to present a more attractive, sort of better version of yourself. And I think a big problem guys make is they do no contact and then they hang out with her and they're the exact same needy, pussy person that they were beforehand. So it was actually pointless. You just wasted all your time. You sat around for 2 weeks staring at your phone, wondering when you're going to talk to her again, and didn't accomplish anything. But I don't want to get stuck on this one topic because we got a lot of good stuff. So who wants to, Chris, you want to jump in next with your lesson for the 2024?
Sure. So to pick up on the no contact thing, a lot of people do the blackout or do no contact. And what you're really correcting there is the time challenge, like we talked about. You probably spend too much time with her, we're too available. And so you want to correct that. And doing a blackout does correct that. But when the guy comes back, there's something that he's forgetting about that he's not correcting. He's still that same guy taking everything way too seriously. And what I mean by that is romantic love is a woman's game. It's a woman's turf, right? And when any guy comes onto her turf and takes things way too seriously, she knows this guy is not an insider. So what do I mean by taking things too seriously? You're logical and rational instead of playful and silly. When she's mad at you, you get worried, even if it's not even something that's a big deal. When she's happy with you, you parrot it right back to her. I miss you too. All showing that you just take her game too seriously. You're not an insider. I say it's like this. We were talking about football before. If you watch a lot of football, not everyone does, but I do. And if someone walked in a room, the playoffs are this weekend, and they said, let's say Bobby Rio came to my house and he said, hey, is Brett Favre playing today's game? You know, Brett Favre's been retired for 10 years. I'm looking at Bobby Rio and saying he doesn't understand football. He's not an insider. He hasn't been watching. And I feel that's the way women are with you. When you say things and take things too seriously and logically and rational, they go, this guy is not an insider.
Yeah, he doesn't get that. You're showing that you're not experienced in. It's the same thing, right? You say guys will go, why do you rip on a guy so much if he brings flowers on a first date? Because the assumption she's making is exactly that. He must not go on a lot of dates if he's bringing me flowers, and this is such a big deal to him that he's bringing flowers. Yeah, I think one of the things I had to have a few conversations with clients this year was, to your point, Chris, where they want to talk about the relationship early on. And some of this is our fault, right? Because sometimes we're like, you got to set boundaries, and they think boundaries is having a conversation like, I really want to date you, but you have to be on time. If we're going to date, I can't, or I feel you're disrespecting me. And really boundaries isn't expressing your feelings. It's going, hey, you're being disrespectful tonight. Why don't we hang out when you're in like a better mood? Or it's like actually just asserting it. It's not talking about it.
And let me jump in on that, because I think what guys need to understand is the more effort you display, the more it accidentally shows that you care. So it's like you need to have strong boundaries, but you need to express it with the least possible effort, right? Which means when she starts acting in a way that you don't like, you just stop putting attention towards her, right? You just remove your attention. Like Bobby, what you just said, the two examples you just gave, one of them was sitting her down and having this long speech that the guy clearly practiced in the mirror. He may be saying the right things on paper, but like I said earlier, women don't care about what's being said on paper. Women care about what the vibe is. And the vibe here is, whoa, this guy really cares about this relationship with me. He ain't going anywhere. If he's rehearsed this talk in the mirror to tell me about his boundaries, he's not about to cut me off. Whereas if you go in and you're just like, you know what? I'm not really feeling it tonight. Why don't we just call it a night? As soon as she starts acting bad, then she's, wait a minute, what's going on here? Oh, crap. I started bitching about things, and then he decided to cut the date short. I can put two and two together and realize that he's losing interest in me. And that lowering of the effort she shows is what actually sets her alarm bells off.
Getting back, yeah.
I was going to say, Rob, this term, I got this from you. You can't negotiate attraction, right? You can't be like, you have to do this. Like, you can't negotiate it. It's not logical. You can't make her.
I was going to go back to Chris's original point, which I thought was good, which is the idea of you're coming from a frame where you don't take anything too seriously, where everything just rolls off your back. It's no big deal. And the thing that I always remind myself is the only power that women or people in general have over you is the power that you give them. So a lot of guys, a lot of the things that come out, like guys will come to me and say, oh, this is disrespectful, or I don't want to tolerate this. Does it really matter that much? Like some of this stuff, like the only reason it matters so much is because they take themselves way too seriously. Like I've had girls say to me all kinds of crazy shit before, but at the end of the day, like the way I see myself, like that's between my two ears and no one's going to influence that. So when a girl says something, and might even be something that's nasty or mean, I can just laugh that off because I don't have to defend my honor and draw a boundary because I don't like that disrespect. It's just, again, and I think that those are the guys who are really good with women, the guys who can just roll with the punches and no, that's cute anyway, and just yada, 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 and move on from that.
That's what you're seeing with these 4 dating coaches right here. If you look at a lot of other dating coaches, it's a lot of uptight, tough guy, fake tough guy stuff. And you're like, this guy, if this guy takes it this seriously, this is not good advice. I wouldn't be taking advice from that person, because really it's the guy who's laid back, chill, doesn't worry too much, whether she's mad at him, doesn't get overconfident when she's really in love with him. It doesn't matter if she's mad or she's loving on you. You're not taking it all too seriously. You're just taking the game in stride.
No, it's true. It's a great point, Rob. And it's funny. I think it's a little bit of a feminine characteristic to get all like worried about what they think. And I have this with my girl all the time, because she's a woman and she reads into people. And I go, who cares? That person, I go, I don't think about that person at all. Like, they literally don't cross my mind when I'm not in the room with them. So I don't care. They can think I'm the most vile human being on earth. It doesn't bother me. And I think part of it is like knowing your value, and not like perfectly you explained it. It's if you really believe that you're a good option for a woman and she rejects you, you can really like literally walk away going, wow, she lost out. And not like in a pretend she lost out. You don't have to say she lost out, because that's what Chris is referring to, the guys who try to be tough and try to prove that she lost out. But mentally, like, you're just like, oh yeah, like she lost out. She's going to go get some loser that's going to treat her like shit. Her loss. And I think a big part of it is, Rob, what's your big lessons from 2024?
So from 2024 going to 2025 is I want 2025 to be a big year for me, right? And when I looked at what I'm always trying to do when I'm setting goals for myself is to get myself in that top percentage. And again, to apply this to dating and women, I remember back like when I wanted to get really like good at Tinder, create like a really good Tinder profile, is I wanted to get myself in that top percentage of guys that, and again, if you look on the statistics on Tinder, probably about like 3% of the men on Tinder get, I don't know, like 86% of the matches. I don't know what the exact statistics are, but it's some kind of ridiculous distribution. So the goal for every guy should be to get himself in that top percentile. And the thing about what usually would work to get yourself in that top percentile is the things that you do, right? Oh, I'm going to have this kind of habit. I'm going to do this. And those things obviously are good. Obviously you have to do certain things, but I'm realizing now going into 2025 that we are such an overstimulated society. This is such an attention economy that now what even matters more, I think, than what you do is what you don't do. An obvious example is screen time, is phone use, right? And again, I love the smartphone. I think it's one of the greatest inventions mankind's ever created. But at the same time, if you want to differentiate yourself from the 97% of other guys, reducing your screen time to minutes versus like the hours and hours that most guys spend in front of a phone is going to make a huge difference. It's going to give you so much more time. So my thing is I started looking at what are the things that I can say no to that are going to free me up to get into that top percentage to reach the goals that I want to reach.
No, it's excellent point. And first off, it's so true. I think we're branching off a little bit, but I agree. You have such an advantage if you're not glued to your phone, if you're not like trapped on social media, if you're not scrolling through Twitter 8 hours a day in every area of your life. And I think that, and this kind of relates to some of the stuff that we've been saying in regards to no contact when we talked about that. It relates to some of the other stuff is setting boundaries, for instance, right? Like me, like my phone is literally on silent all day. Nobody can get in touch with me until 5 o'clock. Okay. But I don't do this because I want to get chicks thinking I'm high status. I don't do this, but it works. Like I'm in a relationship, but business wise, people can't get a hold of me. Like, and people think I'm just so busy. No, I don't want to be distracted during the day. I don't want to be answering texts. If I'm in group chats, I exit any group chat I'm in for my own peace of mind, but it has the added value of making your attention more valuable to other people. Because when the harder it is to get your attention, right, the more valuable it becomes. Like, and Rob and I were talking about this recently, just in terms of attention is like almost the number one commodity. Think about all the businesses fighting for your attention. They are paying huge amount of money to get your attention. And we all just cheaply give it away. We're just like, we don't even think about it. Oh, I'm going to give my attention to this stupid video. I'm going to respond to this text. Think about your attention as being valuable and then decide when you want to give it away. And Rob's point, it's sometimes that means saying no to hanging out with a woman if it's going to take you away from a bigger goal. Sometimes it means not texting her throughout the day because, you know what, like, you've got better shit to be doing. So I think that's great. I think it's anytime you can make a change in your life for the positive that affects other areas of your life, it has compound effects. It's excellent.
Yeah, and it's saying no across the board. What foods are you saying no to? What saying no to porn? Saying no to people that hang around that are just have a toxic influence on you. It is setting a boundary in a way, but at the same time, so looking at, because again, a lot of times we want to make positive change in our life, whether it's like get better with women or whatever it is, get better fitness, whatever. We look at the additive things, the things that we can do to improve. And yeah, obviously there are certain things, certain habits that you have to develop to reach those goals. But what people neglect to look at is what we can subtract. And I think that's a really important thing. It goes back to that old quote, right? It's to get the things that you've never had, you have to do the things that you've never done. But also too, there's sort of an underbelly to that quote, which is also you're going to have to give up things that you've become accustomed to or that have become bad habits for you.
Yeah, no. And that actually ties into one of the things I wanted to bring up. And so some of you guys know, I've been getting obsessed with playing tennis recently, right? The last couple of years, taking lessons, getting into it a couple days a week. And there's this concept in tennis called an unforced error, right? Meaning the other person didn't beat you because they were better. They beat you because you just made a stupid mistake, right? And when you're just getting started, a game is just all unforced errors. It's like the guy didn't have to hit it that good. I'm just not knowing what I'm doing, so I'm hitting it out. And when you take that concept of avoiding unforced errors and you apply it to other areas of your life, in our case, since we're dating coaches, if you apply it to dating, it's like just avoiding unforced errors will make a huge difference. But like a lot of guys either they don't realize that they're making all these unforced errors. And an example of an unforced error is just not taking the time to go, I shouldn't be texting her 15 times a day is an unforced error, right? Like, you lost her interest, not because of any other reason other than you just blew it by being dumb. The example I gave, showing up for a date with a bouquet of roses, telling a woman that you have strong feelings for her after 2 weeks. All of these are unforced errors. And I think a lot of guys, like going to what Rob said, is like they get very overwhelmed. Like the dating is so hard. I have to get in better shape. I have to learn all these like new techniques and I have to learn how to flirt and I have to learn. It's like, if you just stop making unforced errors, you'll see a dramatic improvement in your, what are some, I'm just to bounce around on that. What is some of the big unforced errors you guys have seen with clients?
Yeah, it's definitely going too fast. You touched on it. Going too fast is an unforced error, right? It's really sad when you have a girl that's really into you, right? And she thinks this is a cool guy. This is a challenge. She's assuming that you are. And then you don't confirm it by texting 20 times a day. She goes, I thought he was a cool guy. I guess he's not. That's an unforced error.
Yeah. I think there's an unforced error. It goes back to what you guys were talking about earlier, even, right? Wanting to have the talk, like being like, if she's like flaky, instead of just changing her mood, right? Attracting her more, getting her more interested, wanting to talk about, hey, like, how do you feel? You've been hard to get out. Is something wrong? Am I not? That's an unforced error, right? So it's like just recognizing the things you shouldn't do. And people sometimes go, you always tell us what not to do. And you don't. And I'm like, because if you just stop making these mistakes, it would be so much easier for you, right? You don't have to turn into friggin' some male superstar smooth dude. You just have to not be an idiot. You got to stop making like random dumb mistakes that you probably should know by now you shouldn't be making, but you're either too proud to admit that you're making mistakes, or I don't know.
Yeah.
The definition of insanity is making the same mistake over and over, thinking you're going to get a different result.
That's the funniest thing. It was really like two types of guys, right? There are guys who are willing to make changes because like things aren't working for them. And then there's the other type of guy, which is they don't want to change anything, but they expect the world to change for them. And newsflash, world ain't changing for you. So you got to be in that first class of guys, the guys that when things aren't going the way that you wanted them to, you take inventory, you take responsibility. Okay, I could be doing things differently. That it's not all these women are wrong. Like, yeah, you may be a great guy. You may have a great resume on paper. You may be a catch. But if you're not presenting yourself in an attractive way, these women, you can't blame the women. Like you can't like blaming women that Chris brought up before, the idea of the entitlement, like, you should be attracted to me. Like, this is ridiculous. No, it doesn't work like that. You know, again, it's the hard. Listen, I had to learn, and I had to learn it the hard way. But eventually, I started thinking, like, okay, what do all these women who rejected me have in common? Like that. They're probably making the right decision, and I need to make changes. And again, the sooner a guy realizes that, the better off he's going to be.
Yeah, we all see it when we do YouTube videos. There'll be like all these comments. Women only care about looks, this and that. I'm like, what the fuck do you care about? Are you trying to win over like the fat girl, the girl who looks like shit, the girl who doesn't put makeup on or comb her hair? No, you're trying to win over the hot chick, right? Like the girl that you. So it's like, why is it okay for her to have standards and to want something? Even money. A lot of guys, women only care about money. If she's a really attractive woman and she's got guys fighting over her, you have to accept it. Like, she has options, and our sort of evolution is going to make us choose the option that is best. And if all you have to offer her is I'm nice or I'm a good guy, you know what? That girl can get 100 nice, good guys. If you're broke and you want to compete, you have to be like able to create sexual attraction. You have to be able to stimulate her. You have to be exciting. You have to be unpredictable, right? You have to give her something other than just I'm nice, because
that's exactly it. That was the point I was making about getting yourself in that top percentile, because that's how you get the girls. I remember when I was in New York, I was super broke. I was weird looking. Again, like, I grew my hair out now. I got the nice groovy, the nice clothes.
We'll put some pictures up.
Embarrass me, yeah, sure. But again, I wasn't objectively good looking. I've never been tall. I'm not a tall guy. And I started looking at things, and I'm like, look. And back then, I had no. I wasn't gonna try to become rich overnight. And back then, I thought I looked okay. But my thing was that, like, I was like, all right, if I want to get women, I have to get myself in that top percentile of guys who has the social skills. Because again, you can believe that these guys don't exist, but they do. They're out there. And when you start seeing them and you start opening up your eyes to that okay, like, if I understand social dynamics and improve my social skills, I can put myself in that top 3% of guys and still get girls, even in spite of the fact that I don't have any money or that I may not be the best looking guy.
Yeah, I think also a weird thing is when it comes to attracting a woman, sometimes guys want it to go down a certain way. Like, I want to attract a woman because I'm good looking, or I have a great lifestyle, or I'm in shape, or I have a lot of money. And when in the end, it really came down to you were patient, you didn't send a lot of texts, and a bunch of your texts were silly and wacky, and she fell in love with you. But no one really thinks that's the way I want it to go down, because it's not as cool as thinking, oh, I got her because I'm cool. I got her because I have a great lifestyle. When in the end, hey, I waited a week to text her, and now she's in love with me. It just doesn't seem the same.
It seems cool to us, at least. I think that's cool. I think it's way cooler than getting a girl with your lifestyle. Yeah.
But to Chris's point, a large majority of all our clients are guys, older guys who have a lot of money, right? We all have those guys as clients, guys with a ton of money. And what's to sort of Chris's point, a lot of these guys have worked so hard to make money thinking, I have the money, now I should get the girl. And it doesn't work that way, right? Everybody who doesn't have money thinks that's the way it works. They think, oh, you got money, you got the girl. But if you don't actually learn, like what Rob said about improving yourself, learning these things, like Chris said, Calvin, if you don't actually learn these things and you think all you have to offer is money, it doesn't get you very far, right? It doesn't. And if it does get you far, then the girl's probably not the right girl. If like all you're offering is like your money and she's sticking around and you don't have a good personality, you're not playing the game a little bit with her, it's probably a red flag that she's not with you for the right reasons. That was actually a lesson I learned. Wasn't one on my list, but as you're saying it, just the idea of a lot of these guys, they never come out and say, I have money, but they insinuate, I'm perfect on paper, I'm this, I'm that. And I'm like, yeah, but attraction isn't logical, right? You may be perfect on paper, and she may even brag to her friends, oh yeah, he's got a yacht or he's got his own plane. But I've seen so many women pull away from guys who have their own plane, who have all these things because they don't know how to keep attraction going. But let's move through. Calvin, you got another one from this year?
Yeah, I do. Listen, one thing I really think that a lot of guys that I saw in 2024 messing up doing is what they need to learn is you got to have a crossing the Rubicon moment on the first date. Okay. Too many guys, you get that first date with a girl, meaning it's a one-on-one. It's been a pre-planned thing. She put you on her calendar. She did her hair and makeup. She showed up, you took her out and all you did was you wasted it acting like a friend. And guys, they always think, oh, I'm going to show her I'm different. I'll wait till a future date. And I don't want to be one of those guys who only wants sex. So I'm not going to go for it on the first date. And then surprise, they never get that second date. They never get that third date. Why? Because why would she go on another date with a guy who just hangs around acting like a friend? He's either not interested or he's too much of a pussy to go for it. I tell guys, ironically, the best way to get a second date is by sleeping with her on the first date, because now she feels invested in you and she thinks to herself, I don't want to be a slut. I'm not a one night wham bam thank you man. I want to try to build a relationship with this guy. I had sex with this guy. I want to know what's going to happen. And then you can actually build on something. You got something to build on. And what happens, wise guys, if you go out and you just act like a nice Boy Scout, and then the next night she goes out with another guy who has sex with her, who do you think is in the lead, right? So guys, what do you like to tell guys to motivate them to cross that Rubicon on the first date? And how do you like to tell them to do it?
I'll let you guys go, because these are both actually lessons years ago I learned with you guys, bringing that whole idea of, you know, showing your desire in and of itself, or escalation is attractive in and of itself. So what are your guys' opinion?
I think you have to do two things on a first date. On the one hand, you're trying to keep things light and fun, right? And that's the opposite of being the sexual guy. You want it to be fun, good conversation, we're getting along. But besides doing that, at the bare minimum, you better have that kind of vibe that says, I'm that type of guy. It might not be something you say, it might not be something you do. At the bare minimum, the vibe, the body language, the closeness, the eye contact, the slowing down your speaking, the pauses, at a bare minimum on a first date, you better be doing that.
Rob?
Yeah. And well, just to back up, Calvin, did you call them wise guys? Did I catch a wise guy in there?
I did. Yeah. I've become a 1930s gangster, just so you all know.
Okay. All right. Well, that's the first thing, the way I get motivated. I call them wise guys. And then secondly, yeah, this became a self-fulfilling prophecy for me, right? Like when I was like the typical nice guy, I thought, oh, I can't try to kiss her on a first date. It's a first date. As if I was like this Victorian gentleman with a monocle. But then once I started actually making a move on the first date, and again, I think that, yeah, you can make the goal of trying to sleep with a woman on a first date, but you don't necessarily have to sleep with her on the first date, but you should at least have the intent and be open to the idea of it. Like and I always know guys that don't even have the idea in their head, because I asked them, I said, when you left, did you make your bed? Were you bringing condoms with you when you went on this date? And they're like, no. And like, that didn't even occur to them. And that's how that you're not even in that headspace where you're even thinking that this is a possibility. But when I started actually going out and doing this, again, like trying to kiss a girl on a first date, start trying to kiss a girl earlier than I thought it was gentlemanly time to do it. And not only did the girl kiss me, but they actually seemed to like it and enjoy it. And again, and the girls that I did take home on a first date, I realized that once their pants came off, they weren't wearing the granny panties. They were wearing like the sexy underwear. And again, they put that underwear on because they also, in their head, were like, this is a possibility.
Yeah, very true.
Yeah, they're disappointed when you go out and you just act like a friend and you ask them, oh, and where did you grow up? Oh, Connecticut. That's nice. Oh, how many brothers do you have? Oh, 2. That's nice. You do that and they're thinking, oh my gosh, I shaved my pussy and I put on the sexy panties for this. I just wasted my time. I should have stayed home and binge watched Stranger Things.
Yeah. Yeah. So Chris, you have what is the word you describe it as? Because Rob brought something up, and that even you don't have to necessarily sleep with her, right? Like, it doesn't always happen. It could be logistically, it's not going to happen. Some girls are just not going to sleep with you on the first date. Sometimes it just doesn't happen. But you said that you need a mutual, what is it called? The mutual.
Oh, you need the attraction between you to be mutual, right? Because it could be in your head, I like this girl. It could be in her head, I like this guy. But if nothing physical happens in the real world, if you don't attract her later, she's never going to admit at that time, I like this guy. Oh, you liked him. She goes, oh, no, I didn't. So if something happens, you're touching hands, you're caressing hands, you kiss, it's official in the history books forever. Me and this guy had something going on, and then you can take it from there. But if you don't do it, you'll backwards rationalize, no, I never liked him.
Yeah, it's a great point.
Yeah, and I think that it's interesting because a lot of guys assume it has to be a kiss, but it has to be a mutual recognition where you both are like aware something's going on. And I think I told this story on a podcast I did with you once, Chris, or one of you guys, but I had a girl where we hung out one night and we held hands. We were friends. We were coworkers, not friends. We just held hands for the night. And we were like rubbing each other's hands. And then we never hooked up. Maybe 6 months or a year later, we're all talking. And she, in her mind, remembered us as hooking up. I knew I never hooked up with her because she just remembered, like, oh yeah, something happened between us. Because even though we didn't hook up, we never kissed, but it was an intimate, right? I guess that's the way you would call it, an intimate moment where you both realize you're having it, right? It's not just, oh, I'm rubbing her leg and I feel good about it. It's you're rubbing her hand, she's rubbing it back, and you both know like something's going on here. And I think if you get over that hump, you satisfy what Calvin is saying, where you're not just like the friend at the end of the night. And I think guys getting it in their mind of, I got to at least get to that, is maybe less intimidating than I got to try to bang her tonight. Because I think although we all say that's what we want and we all want it, I think there's a lot of guys that there's just such a mental block. And I also think there's a danger, man. I'll be honest. I think sometimes when you sleep with a girl the first night, it almost backfires because you just lose a little respect for her and you wind up not wanting to date her. I've seen that happen with a lot of clients where like they want a girl, they wind up sleeping with her too quickly and they miss out on the challenge. Almost like she misses out on when you want to be her boyfriend too quickly. But go ahead, Chris.
I think also the guy sometimes falls in love with her too quickly. You would think then that happens on the first night and he's, oh my God, we're a couple now. And he's texting her all the time and he's like falling apart where she's still chill about it. So it could hurt you in both ways.
So what is your next one, Chris? You got another one from last year?
Yeah, I got a bunch here. I think I'm going to do like a subsection of what I just said about not taking things too seriously. I think the final nail in the coffin of when you are taking too seriously is what I call buying in, as in buying into her excuses or buying into when she's showing very low interest level. So I had a little example here. I had a client that he was doing good, but then obviously he went too fast. He started taking things too seriously. And she told him, I'm not dating anyone until I reach all of my goals. So what does he do? He buys into that statement and he goes, I respect that. And I think at that moment right there, like we talked about, that is the moment a woman goes, this guy doesn't understand the game. This guy is not an insider. So what would you do instead of buying into the excuses she gives you? You'd want to diffuse that with humor or use humor to show you're an insider. If a woman said, I'm not dating anyone till I reach all my goals, you say, yeah, I'm not dating anyone till I grow a handlebar mustache, right? Ha, ha, ha. It's not even about being funny. Funny isn't the point. A lot of my clients say, Chris, I'm not funny like you, or I don't know how to be funny. Funny isn't the point. Showing you don't take it seriously is the point. Funny is a bonus. Oh, it was funny. I'm not just here to be funny. I'm here to show you I'm not taking this seriously. You're trying to reject me, push me off and say, I'm not dating anyone until I reach my goals. I'm not going to take that seriously. And I'm not going to take it like a tough guy either and say, hey, you're BSing me. If you really liked me, you would go out with me. I'm sending the message. I'm making the point subtly that I understand the game and I know what you're saying isn't true. I'm not buying into it, but I'm doing it lightly with humor.
I think I just want to say something because one of the things you guys know, I've been working on this new book for the last 6 months. And a lot of it is about this idea of frames and the frames around interactions. And what she was doing there was setting a frame. And to your point, Chris, it's you have a choice. You can either enter that frame or you can reject it and you can just laugh it off and brush it off and refuse to get in that frame of, oh, I'm going to be the guy that is going to, you always have a choice if you want to enter the frame she's giving you. And like you said, it's not about, you have to have this humorous thing. You can say anything. You can smirk and go, yeah, like, you're just not entering that frame. You're not accepting the reality that she's trying to put to you. Now, does that mean you're going to date her? Does that mean she's automatically going to be super attracted to you? No, but it also means you're showing her like, listen, I'm not like an idiot. I know how this game works.
Yeah.
I'm an insider.
How about you, Rob? Another lesson from 2024?
I touched on it before, but since 2024 was an election year, it's interesting because you get a sort of a pulse on the cultural narrative, right? Like the shifts in culture. And this is something I've been seeing from reading guys who comment on YouTube videos, or sometimes I even hear this from guys who write me emails. And I see that I feel like we are at an inflection point right now where really like the population is dividing into two types of people. There are like the victim class, and then there are the people that get it done. And I feel like the culture is really has been pushing people towards that victim class. They're like, oh, it's not your fault. Blame everyone else. It's everyone else's fault. They just don't appreciate you. And that's a very convenient mindset for a lot of guys who don't want to change to adopt. But then there are this other class of people, the people that take responsibility, people who say, okay, what can I change? What can I do differently? And they don't look at anything like, oh, I have a sense of entitlement that like I'm owed attraction or I'm owed affection from this woman. They're like, I need to earn that. How like, what changes? And again, not earn it in the sense that you're chasing a woman or that you're trying to qualify yourself to it, but earn it long before you ever meet her. Like, what work have you done on yourself? What work have you done to understand social dynamics? All these different things. You need to be walking up like feeling okay. Like if you don't have the success you have right now, stop blaming other people, start looking at yourself, start taking responsibility. And what's interesting about that too is that a lot of guys are hesitant to do that because, again, when they take responsibility, they have to look inward. But to me, that's the ultimate form of personal power, because now you're not depending on someone else to fix your problems. You're not like waiting for someone to realize how great you are. Instead, you're enacting your own fate, your own destiny by making the changes that are going to get you what you want.
Yeah, there's a concept that I learned a while ago about the locus of control, right? You either have an internal locus of control or an external locus of control. And you can almost put a circle around two different things, right? There's certain things you have no control over, and then there's things you have control over. And too many guys in all areas of their life focus on the things they don't have control over. And you'll see it all the time. A guy will go, I'm short, right? A lot of guys will go, well, I'm short. I can't. You don't have control over that. You're not. But you do have control over how much of a sense of humor you're displaying, how much autonomy you're displaying, how many unforced errors you're making or not making. And this kind of goes back to the unforced errors. There's so many things you do have control over. You don't always have control over a situation. This is something that's really hard for a client to understand, is that sometimes the timing is just off, right? Sometimes it doesn't matter if you've got the best strategy, the best game in the world. But if a woman just decided she's going to give her ex-husband a second chance, and you're coming into the picture and she's trying to work it out with her daughter's father, it's like you're fighting an uphill battle. And it's like you just have to accept it, that that's outside of your control, right? You can be like, at that point you go, okay, like I can't like change what's going on in her life. I can just focus on being the best version of myself. If her situation changes, if the timing gets better, I'm not going to have messed things up by trying to force something that was unchangeable in the moment. But to Rob's point and the whole victim mentality, I think it's a great mindset for 2025 in general for people to go, what are the things I have control over? And this applies to a lot of different things, right? I have friends freaking out about AI. AI is going to take my job. And I go, okay. Have you spent any time learning about AI? Do you use AI? Have you read a book on AI? Maybe if you spent your time, instead of complaining that you're going to lose your job, maybe if you spent your time researching and learning a little bit about it, you'll be in that 1%, right? We have 1% of guys with women, 1% of guys in the workforce. Like, if you develop certain skills, you can rise up. If you worry and complain about the government or the women out there or the dating apps are making it unfit, Tinder doesn't show it's like there's a million excuses. But if you have no control over it, just drop it from your mind and focus on the things that you do have control over. So I think that's a great point, Rob.
Yeah.
What else, guys? Any other things popping in your head as we're going around the round table here that jumps out at you from either lessons you learned, big wins, just insights, maybe even outside of dating, personal insights that you've had over the past year?
Here's another thing I saw a lot of guys struggling with in 2024, which is they need to remember what we call the 80-100 rule, which is when a woman is giving you 100%, you need to give 80%. When a woman is texting you, oh my gosh, I miss you already, and it's in the middle of the week, you need to write back to her something like, just a few more days till we see each other again. Don't say, oh, I miss you too. It's so hard to make it through the week without you. She may think she wants you to match her energy and say you miss her, but the second she gets it, she's going to be losing interest in you. And she's not going to be quite sure why. Because women, they're just programmed to want a guy who only gives about 80% to the 100% she gives. She takes that as a sign that you're a little bit out of her league. She likes that. She would rather know she's got a guy a little out of her league who likes her 80% than to know she settled for a guy who likes her 100%, but maybe she could have got better. Guys, where have you seen gentlemen who you coach needing to take advantage of that 80-100 rule?
Yeah, I think it's like you said, once you think somebody is out of your league, your brain rewards you with an avalanche of pleasure chemicals. It happens to a
Oh,
guy.
yeah.
We all have a
Oh, yeah.
certain type of girl we like. We all have different types, right? We could quibble about who's this and who's that. But if in my mind, I think, whoa, I know who I've dated in my life, and this is a little better than I've ever got, pleasure chemical explosion. Same thing with a girl. If she thinks this guy is, like you said, Calvin, great point. It can't be equal. It has to just, I don't know, 80-20, we could quibble about what the percentages are. But if she just thinks you're a little bit outside her, what she thought she could get, she has that same feeling you have when you see a beautiful woman you got. Explosion of pleasure chemicals, she's in heaven.
And this might be taking a different direction, but one of the things I think can really make a guy stand out amongst all these other guys is that everyone is so boring nowadays. It's almost like everyone's going off of a script. How is your day going? How was work? How is this? And the thing I think that really separates, and again, whenever I meet guys who are really good with women, I'm talking guys who are like elite level, hottest girls, date a lot of different girls. They're all characters, right? They're all entertaining to be around. They're just like fun dudes. They're people you want to be friends with. They're cool guys. And part of what makes them cool is that they see the world in a unique way and they really own it. And they don't go off of these scripts. These aren't the guys who are going to text you, hey, so what's going on tonight? They're going to text you something even when they're reaching out to meet up with you and hang out. Like their texts are going to be entertaining. It's going to be fun. And I think so many people, this is why, again, where we turn to screens so often is because we're just looking for stimulation. And if you can provide that from your personality, not only is it going to make you like more attractive to women, but it's also just going to make you a cooler person, more likable person in general.
No, it's
Oh, sorry. I was
go ahead. I was just saying it's a great point because you notice this even online, right? With the people, if you're on whatever TikTok or you're on, and you look at like the people who develop massive followings, it's like they all are very in tune and unapologetic about who they are, right? They're just themselves. And at first, a lot of times you're almost turned off because it's like initially you might be like, oh, and then they just grow on you because it's a great point, Rob. They're like a character, right? And we all want characters. Like we don't want we don't want to hang around all the other, what do you call them? Bit players or the supporting roles. Like we want to hang out with like the main character, right? And we all want that in our lives. What were you saying, Chris?
No, I was just saying I'm a dad now and we hang out with the other dads and I like to do a little like thinking in my head, how's this guy's relationship going? How's this guy's relationship going? And what I've noticed is when you notice the women most attracted to the dads we hang out with, these guys are characters. It's the wacky guy that just doesn't care as much. He's being silly. He's got funny videos in his phone. And those are the couples doing the best, right? They're just not taking themselves too seriously. They're not taking things too personally. These are the guys that are having the great relationships. And I'm going to make a weird prediction. We'll just make this a little fun on our little roundtable here. Travis Kelce, right? Taylor Swift. We could accuse him of going too fast. He's a wimp. But one of the things about that guy, I don't know if you notice, he's a little silly. He's a little wacky. He doesn't take things too seriously. He'll dress up in a weird thing. He'll do weird things. That alone, maybe they will last. You could come back and tell me I'm wrong if that doesn't happen, but that's my prediction.
It's interesting you use him because I feel like that guy's such a clown. I feel like he tries way too hard, but he's polarizing, right? And maybe you're right. Maybe but I also think she's a clown that tries too hard too you see her as well. But it is true. He's polarizing and
he's lasted the longest with all
I'm not his target audience. I'm not the one that he's trying to attract. So me being annoyed by him probably means maybe he's doing something right. Because going back to, I know, Rob, when you were at your top pickup artist days back in the day, a lot of your friends and people we knew would be annoyed at you because you were going against the grain and dressing differently, but it was working, right? It was getting you what you wanted. So you could be onto something, Chris.
Yeah. And one thing I'll give a quick hack for how guys can start doing this like right now is you just put your opinions on steroids, right? And not like the serious stuff, not like politics or religion or the stuff that like people actually have strong opinions on, but you just develop strong opinions and be very outspoken about the mundane things. I'll give you a quick example. I like my accountant. He has this weird hatred of, you guys know who Bruce Buffer is? He's like the UFC. He's the guy who comes out, like the ring guy who announces like who's fighting. Very small character. But for whatever reason, my accountant, every time I talk to him, he's always bitching about Bruce Buffer. And he's funny about it though. Like, he always, oh, this guy thinks he's like with stupid suits. And it makes me like him. It makes me like again, I'm calling this guy to talk about my bookkeeping, but yet I enjoy the calls because he goes up on these rants about Bruce Buffer, totally random thing, but it's memorable and it makes you like people. And again, so I think a lot of guys, they have opinions on stuff, but they water them down because, I don't want to be too polarizing. But you should actually lean into those opinions and really just be like outspoken about it, because that's what makes characters, is they have strong opinions.
Yeah, and one thing I've noticed a lot with guys, particularly in 2024, is it's gotten so bad that when a lot of guys first come to me for coaching, they are so out of touch with their own ability to have an opinion, right? They're just so ready to be neutral so that they never rock the boat. And so I do an exercise with a lot of guys and I say, I want you to look to your right now, tell me something, and they will. And I say, now have an opinion about it. And they draw a blank. Long silence. They're too scared. They're too out of practice having an opinion about literally something that they just see. And so I teach guys, come on, we're going to break you free of that. Look at a mirror. Is it dirty? Look at a window. Is there a nice view? You want to be able to be at a restaurant and be able to use the environment. And I teach them, hot guys, attractive guys have polarizing opinions, love something or hate it. Women are attracted to that mechanism inside of a man that makes a strong gut level positive or negative assessment, because that's a survival skill. Thousands of years ago, it was that instant ability to make gut level decisions that could protect a lady from a saber-toothed tiger, or could allow you to find berries in a bush and eat them and know they weren't poisonous. Women are not attracted to these wishy-washy, oh, that painting, it's okay. They want you to look at that painting and go, oh, that looks terrible. Looks like a 4-year-old painted that in a finger painting class. You know what we should do? We should break in here tonight and steal it. We'd be doing them a favor. Or they want you to look at that and go, whoa, that painting is awesome. Doesn't that look like one of those ink blot tests? I feel like I can look at that and it reads me. Go ahead. Tell me which. Now, to that end, Rob, I know you've got a very funny story about an opinion, a strong opinion you have loaded that has to do with a certain Disney movie called Beauty and the Beast. I recall there's a character you pretend to hate out of that movie.
Yeah, I don't hate her. I just think it's the character you're talking about is Miss Potts, who is, I think she's a slut. There's a lot of like little coffee cups running around the castle, and there's no Mr. Potts. Like, she's just a loose woman. So I don't know what's going on there. But Calvin, get back to your point. I like what you just said, except for one thing. I actually think it more conveys status, right? Because it's almost a luxury to have a strong opinion. Like, think about like people who are high status, like your boss at work. He's the one who's going to be like, no filter. He's going to say whatever he wants because he's not filtered, because he has the luxury of not having a filter. Like, he's the high status person. So that's where I think having polarizing opinions, that's why I think it's so attractive to women. Again, I might have an opinion on a berry, but and if I eat it, I still might die. It doesn't matter what my opinion is of the berry. But I think it's like that. The reason that having the polarized opinions, why it's attractive, is because it conveys that you're high status.
And it also
you heard my voicemail, Rob?
What?
Have you heard the voicemail on my phone?
No. What is it?
When you call my phone, you called my phone a few years ago and heard the voicemail, and you said, you're the craziest guy ever. It was like some wacky thing that I did.
Oh, was it?
Anyway, no, but by what you're saying, and I've had the rooster at different times. Anyway, the point is, a lot of people told me when I had that, they go, you better get rid of that, because if a girl calls, she's not going to leave a message and you're going to blow it. And I think that's what you guys are saying. Also, this fear, if I have an opinion, I'm going to blow it. And that's what makes everyone play it so safe and play it vanilla, where the guy this is my voicemail, I don't care. I'm a little out there, I'm a little silly. Girl leaves a message or she doesn't, I don't really care. Of course, they always end up loving it. Oh, your message is funny. But it's that fear of blowing it, I think, as well.
Yeah, I agree too with Rob in the idea of the status is that if you don't think you have status, if you're with a woman or you're with a group of guys and you don't think you have the status, you're not going to be expressing an opinion freely, because you're going to wonder, if they don't agree with me, are they not going to like me? Am I going to be out? So I think that being able to go, you know what, it's almost a acknowledgement, right? Like of your own, I guess, status. I don't know if status is the word, but if you put it out there, it's almost like, because I like it, it's cool. And you almost have that vibe of like, my opinion's right. It's going back to frame. It's almost like you're setting the frame of like, all right, this guy, like, he doesn't care what we think. Now they're going to find themselves, because somebody's always adjusting to the other person, right? So if one of you guys were sitting there thinking Travis Kelce was super cool, and then I go, Travis Kelce's a joke, right? It takes a lot of sort of balls almost to go, I really like the guy, right? Most people would either keep their mouth shut or they would go, yeah, he's corny, right? But because you have to now challenge that, and be able to throw something out there and not worry that, oh, somebody might differ, is showing that you don't give a fuck. And I think that is an attractive quality for sure.
That's one of the absolute biggest things I see the guys who do not get women lack, is that ability to assume that they're right. Assume that because they have a preference, that's the right preference. Because they have an opinion, that's the right opinion. Too many guys, they just go through life passively. A lot of times I'll be reading a text chain, and some guys have even heard try to be funny in your text, and you'll see them being funny, but every time it comes down to who holds frame and whose opinion becomes the dominant norm, he always defers to the girl. And all you're going to be if you do that is the funny guy in the friend zone. You've got to have the mental dominance in the situation. Do you guys have any stories of teaching men to have that mental dominance?
If you're being funny on text, right? Like if you're doing it for the first, I'm just bringing this up because I've seen clients do this. When you're trying to be funny and silly for the first time after being that boring, logical guy, she'll write something like, "What drug are you on?" Right? She's trying to test you. She's trying to make you jump back to being the serious guy again, and you fall for it. You're like, "Oh no, she's on to me. I'm trying to be funny now, and it's not working." But then again, it's don't care that she said that, and you just keep rolling with it. And you train her that this is the new me.
Yeah, totally true. But I think this is a good place to wrap it up, guys. This has been great, a lot of insights, and this is something I actually want to do more often, get you guys on and just go around talking about different stuff. For those of you watching, I'm going to put a link below for the various, if any of you guys are interested in looking into Chris, Rob, Calvin for coaching, I'll put links below for that. And any parting thoughts for the guys for 2025 to make it just a kick-ass year for them.
Don't waste another year, guys. Get this handled.
Yeah, another good thing that guys should do is they should subscribe to all of our YouTube channels, because getting good information and getting people that you relate to, if you watch to the end of this video, you probably relate to us on some level. So you want to take dating advice from people that resonate with you. And I think that just being in that habit of constantly getting good information to correct bad mindsets, I think that's a really good habit to get into.
Yeah. Anybody else want to leave them with just a quick tip for 2025?
Yeah, guys, trust me, you would rather go on a first date and go home knowing that you made a move and got rejected than go on a first date and know that you didn't make a move, you acted like a friend, and now you still don't know where you stand. I promise you, it's a better feeling to know that you put yourself out there. Now, if she agrees to a second date, hey, she knows what she's getting into. She's agreeing to go out again with a guy who actually wants to kiss her. If you get a second date and you didn't make a move, what's she signing up for? Another day of chit chat with a friend, a girlfriend in a male body? You don't want that. So that's what I would say needs to be your thought going into 2025. Better to go for it, play a hand, and get rejected than sit there and never make that move.
Yeah, I'll leave you with this, and it may sound gloomy, but it's something that I constantly have to remind myself of. And I'm actually, Chris, you might be older than me, but we're all now, I'm in my 40s. And when you look at a year, it's very easy to go, yeah, I have so much time left, or I have this. But when you start looking at it like seasons, right? For instance, I'm really into skiing, right? So we're in the winter now. And there's days where I'm like, I want to go skiing, but I got to work, or and then I think to myself, realistically, I have 12 ski seasons left, right? And they go so fast. And you got to remind yourself that time is going to go really fast, right? If you think of summers, okay, you only have 20 summers left if you're a certain age, right? Some of our clients are in their 50s, 60s. For honest, you got 20 summers left. Out of those 20, 10, you're probably going to have good health. And you got to think about that and use that as motivation. If I only have this amount of time left, if I only have this many years left, am I going to chase some fucking girl for the whole year, wasting it? Am I going to be scared to take a chance? Am I going to be, or just friggin' do what you want to do on a day-to-day basis? So that's just something I always personally, because I think when you think, oh yeah, like you're going to die, it's very abstract. But when I think of it, I actually only have about 12 seasons of skiing left. It makes me go, I'm going to get as much in as possible this season because I don't have that many left. So I think that that might be an interesting way to motivate yourself, whether it's to get coaching and finally handle this area of your life or any area of your life. So anyway, guys, this was fun. Like I said, appreciate you guys joining me. I'll put links to your YouTube channels and coaching and everything below this video if you guys want to learn more of any of these guys. And hopefully we'll do this again soon.